Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Night Luke Live Online. This is Luke chapter 23, verses 26 to 31. That's our pericope. And here we go. As the soldiers led Jesus away, they seized Simon the Cyrenian, who was coming in from the country, and they put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. As many people were following him, including many women who were mourning and wailing over him. Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, 'Blessed are the childless, and blessed are the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will say to the mountains, 'Fall upon us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if people do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?" I thought I would stop here and give you just a short pericope because it needs quite a bit of explanation, I think. We have again a situation that's almost universal in all countries of the world, where the soldiers just do what they're told. No one thinks for himself or herself. They just follow the orders. So they're following the orders and led Jesus away to the Golgotha, the hill of Golgotha or Calvary, where he will be crucified. And of course they see that after Jesus was scourged, he's very, very weak. So they just pull someone from the crowd, and now a man who's famous from the scriptures, not because of his particular compassion, but because he was the one who was forced to carry the cross instead of Jesus picking up. But he's become a symbol for all of us when we help someone who is suffering. And I guess it's sort of very compassionate of the Holy Spirit's insight that we see, yes, many times we're forced. We're forced to carry a cross. Most of us would try to avoid them. Yet this is a deep reality. And there's grace to be had if we accept it, carrying a cross for someone else, which again is very important because we realize it's not about solving the problem for someone else. Simon doesn't solve Jesus's death. His death sentence doesn't change what's to happen, but he does help. He does make the load a little easier. It gives Jesus a respite from the pressures that are put upon him. So that's very important for us to recognize. Yes, the human inclination is to, look, I don't feel like it, I don't want to, but I need to be forced to do something good. And then when we do, that we don't become all powerful, that this is all our problem, we have to solve it for the other person. But we say, well, we'll carry the burden, help alleviate it to the extent we can, but the person has to follow what they were meant to do, just as Jesus was meant to continue. Again, primarily as we've been exploring throughout our discussion of the Passion of Jesus, to make it evident of the universal dynamics of oppression and how humans hurt ourselves and how we hurt others. All of it has to be exposed, or all of it isn't redeemed. All of it needs to be forgiven, but you have to be very specific, all the things one is forgiving. And that is part of the mystery and power and beauty and tragedy, all rolled up to one of the Passion of Jesus. So many people are following. Again, these probably mixed, right? A mixed crowd. Some are just gawking, seeing, well, I'm glad I'm not that guy, and others are literally feeling empathy, but feeling helpless, which is another universal dynamic of part of life. The women, some commentators say they're just like paid professional mourners, although no one's paying them as far as we know. They may be some of the women from Galilee who had followed Jesus. They may be very sincere in their grieving. And then Jesus says this kind of, I say, what's the word that I want? Mystifying statement. Don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, blessed are the childless women and the nurse and the breasts that never nursed. So what is he saying there? Again, there are times when we feel the weight of the sins of the world, when we feel the weight of the errors of the world, of the harm in the world. Every age, every decade, every year has its turmoils of hate, turmoils of violence, turmoils of war and conflict. And so again, a kind of universal thing. We even have in passages of other passages of the scriptures, women and men asking, why was I born? Why am I here? Again, Jesus saying, I'm going to address that. And part of the release from that is empathy for the suffering and to recognize we're all in this together. And then a very poignant is the last line when he says, if people do these things while the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry? Meaning, there in the midst of them is life. Jesus embodies, is incarnated the fullness of life. And there's still hate and anger and all the things that we talk about, how we do harm. And he's saying, well, if this is happening in the midst of life and the offering of a kingdom not of politic, but a kingdom of relationships, of peace and honesty and justice and mercy. If this is all swelling and the welling up and the psychology of the mob is happening now, well, when things are really bad, when there doesn't seem to be any hope, what will things happen then? If you're not letting this passion impact you in heart and in mind and in growing in wisdom, if you're not open to the real gifts of the Spirit that have been bestowed upon the people from the beginning in many different ways, well, then you're really, really negating yourselves. You're negating the purpose of humanity, which is relationship, of honesty, of truth, of love. And this is what will befall you. So again, some people look at it again as another prophecy. God's ready or waiting, and this is the end times. But we've really thankfully moved beyond that when we come to these passages. And once again, we're called to a sense of empathy, an identifying of the universal human dynamics, the shadow, with Jesus offering a way through with the shadow. And so we'll leave you with that to contemplate it this night and all through the week. Thank you so much for joining me. Join me for Young at Heart on Friday evening on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and a link on Twitter, whichever is your favorite, whatever. God bless you all. Have a good night.